Joining us now, Army veteran Lieutenant Colonel Darin Gaub. He's a retired Black Hawk helicopter pilot and a squadron leader and co-founder of Restore Liberty. Colonel, we've kind of well established this, that the air campaign in the past several days from Russia has been robust. Is it because they're so frustrated because the ground campaign has gone nowhere?
Hey, Trace. Yeah, thanks for having me back. And I think there's room for the argument there that that is certainly a possibility that they could be frustrated at the movement of the ground campaign. Now, I do think that Putin had this desire in his mind that the ground campaign would be fairly quick, or at least a lot quicker than it's been going. And there's a possibility that these pauses are for a purpose, more logistics oriented than they are anything else. And I would anticipate these air attacks will continue at the pace and scope that they're going for a while.
I wonder, we give a lot of credit to whoever tends to be moving at the time, but we should also give credit to both sides, including the Ukrainian forces, because one senior defense official said this about Ukrainian forces, quoting here, "As we have said all along, they've been quite creative here. They're not simply going after combat capability, tanks and armored vehicles and shooting down aircraft, although they're doing all that. They are also deliberately trying to impede and prevent the Russians' ability to sustain themselves," meaning they're cutting off supplies. And my question, Colonel, would be, how in the world could you cut off supplies to these Russian ground forces? In most parts of the country, they're only 70 miles from their border. They should have supplies being rotated in on a constant basis.
Yeah, you would think that would be happening for sure. With that common border, the ability to move fairly quickly. Now, there are some clear concerns with moving logistics back and forth quickly as well. It is a good question to ask. We don't know why that could be occurring. There are a lot of different reasons, from weather to the simple fact that the Russians may not have the supply systems and the amount of supplies in place that we think they really do. And even 70 miles, though, is really a long distance to move that much material over a front that runs really from Odessa and wraps around all the way up to Kyiv. And as the air forces keep moving too, that is a large front in a country that is virtually the size of Texas. And to sustain that for any military around the world would be very difficult.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. I just want to point out the director of Russian Studies for Naval Analysis said the following here. His name is Michael Kaufman. He said, quoting, "Ukraine's main game is a game for time. To try to do something else is going to waste a lot of military potential they have available. Are they in a position to drive Russian forces out of Ukraine? No. Are they in a position to win the war? Yes." Is that a fair assessment?
No, I think that's a fair assessment. In many ways, I would argue that Russia on a global stage has already lost the war. It's just a question of whether or not they're going to win the battle that's inside the Ukraine. But the people and the fighters in Ukraine have won their own war already in the eyes of the world. And this delaying tactic, it would work really well in Ukraine, specifically because of all the supplies and logistics that are pouring into them from around the globe. Russia is right now relying pretty much on Russia, which is why you see them reaching out to places like China, maybe Iran and others. We don't know 100% for sure, though.
Yeah, a Ukrainian soldier said the following here. I want to put this up on the screen if I can. He said about the Russian troops, he said, "They attack our posts, and then we attack them, and they run back. The Russians are disoriented in the city," and he means, on the outskirts of Kyiv, and it's kind of baffling when you look at this and you think of, the world's #2 superpower, and they really have been in disarray from the start on the ground, Colonel.
Yeah, every team that plays on the opposing court is at a disadvantage regardless of where they started from. So that is for sure true in all of Ukraine, but specifically in the 350 square miles that is Kyiv itself. To move from the outskirts of Kyiv and the countryside around the nation itself into an urban environment is an entirely different thing. That is the most difficult conflict or combat in the world. And to make that move into Kyiv is going to take a lot of forces and a lot of supplies, and they may be waiting in order to make sure they have those.
I guess my last question would be, Colonel, that, you know, we know that negotiations paused today. They weren't failed. They just paused because they're kind of going back and they're kind of rewriting some stuff and they're working some things. And I'm wondering if you believe 19 days into this war that maybe both sides are looking for an off-ramp here.
I do, and I certainly hope so. If this thing keeps going the way it's going, that really, I guess the people that are really going to suffer are going to be the Ukrainian people primarily, and that's the main concern. Putin will obviously need an off-ramp because it's not going the way he wanted to go. The Ukrainians would just really want to go back to be able to rebuild their country and to live in peace, and we hope they can do so. And if this is a way where both of them can walk away with something for the good of the Ukraine people, I hope they are successful.
It's good analysis. Lieutenant Colonel Darin Gaub, thank you, sir, for coming on.
Thank you again, Trace.